You probably know this moment without needing it explained. You step through the door after a long day. Your keys land somewhere you'll forget about later. Your shoulders drop before your shoes come off. And before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone else, you're already talking to your pet. "Hey, I'm back." As if they've been waiting all afternoon just for that sentence. You tell them about your day, not dramatically, not performatively, just honestly. You narrate small things without thinking. You explain why you're tired, why the tone of someone's voice stayed with you longer than it should have. And the strange part isn't that you're talking, it's that it feels completely natural. They look at you, not like they're waiting to respond, but like they're present. You don't wonder if this is normal, not in that moment. The question doesn't even come up. The conversation feels older than today, older than this house, older than whatever version of you walked in through the door. It feels like you're simply continuing something that was never interrupted. Maybe you've noticed it happens without effort. You don't rehearse, you don't filter, you don't soften your feelings or translate them into something more acceptable. You just speak, and something in your body loosens when you do. It's only later, maybe when someone laughs about it or gives you that half-confused look, that the question appears. Why does this feel easier than talking to people? Why does being seen without words feel safer than being understood with them? You may not have had language for it before, but that moment, the one you don't question anymore, is where everything begins. What's interesting is that this never felt strange to you. Not once. Not even the first time you caught yourself explaining your mood to an animal who couldn't answer back. It felt normal in a way that didn't need defending. But you've seen the reaction from other people. That pause, the small laugh, the look that says, "Wait, you actually talk to them?" And that moment can make you second-guess something that never felt wrong until it was observed. Here's the truth most people miss. Talking to your pet isn't about expecting a response. It's about not being interrupted, not being corrected, not having your feelings turned into something that needs to be justified or explained away. To someone who processes connection primarily through words, this kind of interaction looks unnecessary, maybe even a little odd. But for someone who feels first and explains later, it feels instinctive. You're not filling silence. You're sharing space. There's also a quiet confidence in it. You're not performing for an audience. You're not proving anything. You're speaking because something inside you needs to be expressed. And you know this is a place where expression won't cost you safety. That's why it doesn't feel strange. Because you're not reaching outward for validation. You're settling inward into a connection that doesn't demand anything from you. And once you've experienced that kind of ease, it's hard to mistake it for something abnormal. There's a quiet assumption in our culture that emotional intelligence is something you demonstrate with the right words, saying the right thing, naming feelings accurately, explaining yourself clearly enough to be understood. But that's only one kind of intelligence. The kind you carry shows up before language. It lives in tone, timing, and attention. It's the ability to sense what's happening beneath the surface, often before anyone says a word. And people who talk to their pets tend to have this kind of awareness in abundance. You notice shifts, a change in energy when you enter a room, the weight behind a casual comment, the difference between someone who's quiet because they're thinking and someone who's quiet because they're shutting down. None of this feels dramatic to you. It feels obvious, almost physical. That sensitivity doesn't switch off just because your pet can't speak. If anything, it becomes clearer. When you talk to them, you're responding to presence rather than language, to how they look at you, how they settle when your voice softens, how they move closer when your mood changes. This is emotional intelligence without performance. No explaining, no persuading, no needing to be right. Just awareness, meeting awareness. And that's why it comes so naturally. You're already attuned to signals most people overlook. You don't need words to confirm what you're feeling. You already know. Talking to your pet isn't a substitute for human connection. It's an expression of a deeper skill, the ability to relate without requiring proof. In a world that often rewards the loudest voices, this kind of intelligence goes unnoticed, but it's real, and it shapes how you connect, quietly, intuitively, and with a depth that doesn't announce itself. There's a word people like to use when they want to explain this away: anthropomorphism. It sounds technical, almost dismissive, as if giving human qualities to an animal means you're projecting something that isn't really there. But that interpretation misses something important. Anthropomorphism isn't about pretending your pet is human. It's about your brain doing what it has always done, recognizing patterns of safety, consistency, and emotional response, and assigning meaning to them. This isn't imagination running wild, it's perception, organizing experience. Humans evolved by reading signals long before we had language, facial expressions, body orientation, subtle shifts in behavior. When a being responds to you in predictable, emotionally consistent ways, your nervous system registers that as connection. Over time, your mind fills in the emotional shape of that bond. Your pet doesn't interrupt. They don't contradict your feelings. They don't suddenly withdraw affection because you said the wrong thing. That reliability creates a pattern your brain can trust. So when you talk to your pet, you're not confusing categories. You're responding to emotional coherence, to a presence that feels stable enough to hold meaning. Calling that immature misunderstands the intelligence behind it. You're not inventing connection, you're recognizing it without needing it to be explained back to you in words. There's a reason talking to your pet feels easier than talking to most people, and it has very little to do with trust issues or social fatigue. It has to do with predictability. Human relationships are emotionally complex. Even when someone cares about you, there's always an element of uncertainty. Words can be misinterpreted, reactions can shift. A vulnerable moment can suddenly turn into advice, debate, minimization, or silence. Your nervous system learns this early. Opening up carries risk. Pets don't carry that kind of unpredictability. When you speak to them, nothing needs to be managed. You're not scanning for signs of judgment. You're not bracing for a response that might change how you're seen. Their presence remains steady. Affection doesn't disappear because your feelings were inconvenient. Attention doesn't hinge on how clearly you explain yourself. This is where attachment comes in. Not in a dramatic sense, but in a biological one. The brain is wired to seek emotional anchors that feel consistent and non-threatening. Pets often become those anchors because they offer something rare: closeness without evaluation. With people, being seen can sometimes feel like being measured. With pets, being seen simply feels like being held in awareness. There's no hierarchy, no scorekeeping, no emotional negotiation. That safety allows your body to relax. Your breath slows, your shoulders drop. You speak more honestly because nothing bad happens when you do. And here's the part that matters. Choosing safety doesn't mean you're avoiding connection. It means your system is responding intelligently to where connection actually feels possible. Pets feel safer because they don't demand emotional labor in exchange for presence. They offer connection without conditions, and for a nervous system that's learned to be careful, that kind of safety isn't weakness, it's relief. When you talk to your pet, something very real is happening beneath the surface, something physical, not just emotional. Your nervous system is shifting states. Most days, your body lives in a low level of alertness. You're monitoring tone, reading expectations, adjusting yourself in small ways to fit what the moment asks of you. Even when nothing is wrong, your system stays slightly braced. That tension becomes so familiar, you barely notice it anymore. But when you start talking to your pet, the rules change. Your voice naturally softens, your breathing slows without effort, your body leans instead of tightens. These aren't conscious choices. They're signals your nervous system sends when it no longer perceives threat. Psychologists call this emotional regulation. But in this case, it's not something you force. It happens because your system senses safety and begins to settle on its own. Speaking out loud helps organize your internal world. Thoughts that were tangled begin to line up. Feelings that felt vague take shape simply by being named. Your pet responds to this shift instantly, not with words but with posture, stillness, proximity. Animals are exceptionally attuned to changes in tone, rhythm, and energy. They don't need explanations, they track your state directly. This creates what's known as co-regulation, two nervous systems syncing in real time. As you calm, they stay close. As they stay calm, your body receives confirmation that it's safe to soften further. That's why these moments feel grounding. You're not distracting yourself from stress. You're completing a biological loop, expressing emotion, receiving steady presence, and allowing your system to return to balance. Talking to your pet isn't childish or imaginary. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do when safety is finally available. For many people, this pattern doesn't start in adulthood. It begins much earlier, often before there was language to describe it. As a child, you learned quickly whether your inner world had room to exist, not through big moments, but through small repeated signals, whether your feelings were met with curiosity or dismissal, whether silence felt safe or heavy, whether expressing yourself brought closeness or complication. Some children learn that being emotional creates tension, that asking for comfort is inconvenient, that explaining what they feel takes more energy than it gives back. So they adapt, quietly, intelligently. They begin to hold things in, not because they lack depth, but because depth wasn't consistently welcomed. This doesn't mean anything was intentionally cruel. Often caregivers were overwhelmed, distracted, or simply unequipped to respond to emotional nuance, but a sensitive child still registers the pattern. Some parts of me are easier to carry alone. Over time, the nervous system remembers this. It learns where expression feels safest. And for many, that safety shows up later in relationships that don't require explanation. Relationships where presence is enough. Animals offer that kind of space naturally. They don't ask you to simplify your feelings. They don't rush you towards solutions. They stay. So when you talk to your pet as an adult, you're not regressing. You're returning to a form of connection that your system recognizes as non-threatening. A place where emotional expression doesn't lead to distance. This is why the bond can feel unexpectedly deep. It touches a younger part of you, not a broken one, but a perceptive one. A part that learned early how to survive by finding connection where it was least complicated. And in that sense, this pattern isn't a flaw. It's a trace of resilience, still quietly shaping how and where you allow yourself to be fully felt. There's something subtle happening when you talk to your pet, something that goes beyond comfort or habit. You're not just speaking outward, you're being reflected. Animals don't mirror your personality the way people do. They mirror your state, your calm, your tension, your sincerity. When you soften, they soften. When you're restless, they notice. Their responses aren't shaped by social rules or expectations. They're shaped by what's actually present. This is why the connection can feel strangely honest. In psychology, there's an understanding that we recognize ourselves most clearly when we aren't performing. With your pet, there's no role to maintain, no version of yourself to uphold. You don't need to be articulate, composed, or impressive. What you bring is what exists, and that's what's met. In that sense, your pet becomes an emotional mirror, not reflecting how you look, but how you are. The tiredness you didn't name, the tenderness you didn't protect, the loyalty you still carry, even when you've learned to hide it from the world. When you speak to them, you're often speaking to those parts of yourself indirectly, the parts that don't want to be analysed or fixed, just acknowledged, just allowed to exist without explanation. That's why these moments feel grounding. They reconnect you to something essential and unfiltered, something instinctive, something real. Your pet doesn't need to understand your story to recognize your truth. And in their quiet, attentive presence, you're reminded of who you are when nothing is demanded of you. There's an important distinction that often gets overlooked in conversations like this. Comfort is healing, but only when it doesn't quietly replace growth. Talking to your pet can be deeply regulating. It can soothe your nervous system, help you process emotion, and give you a sense of being understood without risk. But there's a moment where it's worth pausing and asking a gentler, more honest question. Is this comfort helping me return to connection, or helping me avoid it? This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. For some people, the safety they feel with animals exists alongside meaningful human relationships. The bond with a pet becomes a place to rest, not a place to hide. But for others, especially those who've been hurt, dismissed, or misunderstood repeatedly, this comfort can slowly become a substitute. Not because they don't want people, but because wanting has cost them too much before. When that happens, the nervous system learns a quiet rule. Stay where nothing can go wrong. And while that rule makes sense, it can also keep connection at a distance. You don't risk disappointment, but you also don't risk being truly known. The key difference lies in intention. Are you using this safety to recover or to retreat? Pets offer a rare kind of unconditional presence, but they can't challenge you. They can't meet you in complexity. They can't grow with you in the way another human can. Recognizing this doesn't diminish the bond, it clarifies it. Comfort becomes most powerful when it restores your capacity to connect, rather than quietly replacing it. Here's the part that often gets missed. If you can connect this deeply with an animal, you already have the capacity for deep human connection. Nothing is missing in you. The patience you show, the way you listen without interrupting, the sensitivity to tone, presence, and emotional shifts. These aren't traits that only belong in quiet moments with a pet. They're skills, and skills can travel. The difference isn't whether you can connect, it's where you feel safe enough to do it. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world, but some people do. And the same awareness that allows you to feel understood without words can help you recognize who those people are. Connection doesn't begin with explanation. It begins with safety. Your pet doesn't replace human relationships. They remind you of how connection is supposed to feel, unforced, attuned, and steady. They show you the version of yourself that can be present without armor. If this video put words to something you felt quietly for a long time, you're not alone. This channel exists to explore the subtle psychological patterns that shape how we relate, protect ourselves, and heal. If you'd like more conversations like this, consider subscribing. And if this resonated with you, share in the comments. Have you ever felt more understood by an animal than by a person?